Town Bank Mortgage, NMLS number 512138, is an equal housing lender. This podcast is for informational purposes only. And now, the man born with a 5 o'clock shadow and with the NMLS number 2028201. He is a gentleman. He is a scholar. He is
Tyler Crawley.
So this is a little embarrassing. Like one day after I kind of really promote this podcast, because I've been doing it for a while. This is episode 20. But I finally was like, all right, I feel good. I'm going to kind of start pushing it. We have the slowest news day I've seen in like 2 months, like since the shutdown. There was nothing happening today. Nothing. Zero. Nothing going on. All day, I was like, all right, there's going to be something. Something's going to happen. Now, of course, there were things happening, but nothing that was impacting mortgage rates. So, like, bond yields were pretty much, I mean, at one point, they were, like, unchanged. I mean, not even, like, a movement. It was just straight up no change. So, like, the show that it's like, oh, there's always at least one story that's moving rates every once in a while. You don't have one of those. And here we are, and yet still doing the show. But welcome, everyone, to Wilmington Mortgage. I am the aforementioned host of this podcast, Tyler Crawley, of course, loan officer, Town Bank Mortgage, right here, Wilmington, North Carolina, where we, when there is a story to talk about, break down the top stories that are impacting mortgage rates in 15 minutes or less. Oh, and by the way, also, my Christmas tree is still up. So I was going to take it down today, and I was kind of busy trying to figure out what story we were going to talk about. So I didn't take it down. So it's still up. So enjoy the Christmas tree for those watching on YouTube. All right. We do have a busy week though. There's a lot going on tomorrow. There's a lot going on Thursday. There's a lot going on Friday, and we are going to get to that. But I decided, so once again, mortgage rates are pretty much unchanged for the day. Actually, you know what? I didn't even check to see. Well, Mortgage News Daily actually had rates. They had their 30-year fixed rate up 1 basis point. The 10-year was basically unchanged. So, like I said, not a lot of movement. But I did decide, luckily, there was a story that caught my eye that is, in my opinion, very fascinating. And it's kind of related to mortgages to some extent. More so with regards to the other side of living in a house. So either you can buy a home, and unless you're paying cash, you're going to have a mortgage. But the other way that you, of course, live somewhere is through rent. And there's been a big debate recently about rent control. A lot of this because of the new New York City mayor, Mondami, who, of course, took power New Year. And has gotten some interesting headlines. It seems like the press is kind of souring on him a little quicker. Maybe that's just what I'm seeing. But the honeymoon did not last long, is what I'm trying to say. And there was a court proceeding that caught my attention. Court proceedings don't normally, I mean, I'm a fan of the law. A lot of my friends are attorneys. I used to talk about the law a lot when I was on the radio talking politics, and you talk about Supreme Court rulings. And so I do like to read interesting cases and look at, certain proceedings, but for the most part, legal proceedings don't tend to catch my eye, nor many people's eyes on social media, except this one did. And it was a bankruptcy court hearing in New York City. And what it was the city of New York is asking the bankruptcy court to pause a potential sale of bankrupt properties for about 30 days. And it does seem as if they're trying to kind of just block the sale from happening. And so here's why this caught my eye. So, and a lot of, once again, this isn't, I didn't like just notice this. People were pointing this out on Twitter. So this isn't like I came to this conclusion. I saw it and said, I got to do some research into this. And so, okay, here's what's going on. So in May, Pinnacle Group CEO Joel Weiner placed a dozen of apartment owning entities in a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He formed it under, I think it's like Broadway LLC something. And so it's it's a bunch of properties from Pinnacle, but Pinnacle itself is not going bankrupt. It's like this portfolio of properties they're putting into bankruptcy. And this came about because months earlier, Flagstar Bank began foreclosure proceedings tied to about $564 million in debt on these properties. And so they're like, all right, these properties are not profitable. We're putting this into Chapter 11. So it kind of froze everything so they couldn't move forward. And so now they're in bankruptcy court trying to figure out what they're going to do. And at the end of last year, Summit Properties agreed to buy the 5,000 unit portfolio, a little bit over 5,000, for $451 million. Now, you should know that in December of 2024, I was reading sort of the summation of this story. And they were talking about how in December of 2024, an independent appraisals on all the properties by Bowery Valuation said that the book value of all these properties was $826 million. So you got Summit Properties that's like, we're going to buy these properties for $451 million on an $826 million sort of evaluation. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing if you're Summit Properties. I mean, you're almost paying 50 cents on the dollar, a little bit more, but close, like 55, maybe 60 cents on the dollar. Still an amazing deal. So here's what's bizarre. So New York City is asking them to delay the approval for 30 days, not confirm the sale. And here's why. So New York City is actually arguing that Summit Properties will not be able to make money with this sales price. This is from the court proceeding. This is exactly what it says. Quote, the city has substantial concern that even if Summit is able to consummate the proposed sale, it may not have sufficient resources or willingness to rehabilitate the properties or be able to maintain a profitable business based on the income stream from the rent stabilized or rent controlled apartments in the properties. Because that is the underlying issue here, is that 96% of the portfolio is rent stabilized apartments with 2% under rent control. And so New York City is saying Summit Properties is buying this portfolio at 60 cents on the dollar, and they still will not be able to make money on those properties. Like, how crazy is that? That's crazy. So what happened though? Because it's not like all of a sudden they just became rent controlled, stabilized apartments. I mean, this clearly was a business model. So what led to these properties going into bankruptcy? Well, they mentioned that the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 dramatically changed the economics of rent regulated housing by, quote, eliminating vacancy decontrol, capping rent increases tied to renovations, restricting condo conversions. And basically all of these changes impacted their ability to make money. So one of the things that used to be able to do is that, you know, if you had to do upgrades to an apartment because, you know, things were falling apart or whatever, you could say, hey, listen, I got to put X amount of money into it, so I'm going to need more money to recoup those costs. And they basically were like, nope, you can't do that. So what's happened is a lot of these apartments have fallen into disrepair because the people are like, why would I fix them when I'm already barely making any money, if at all? And now, and in this case, clearly losing money. And now I can't even recoup the costs of the upgrades that I'm going to do or the fixes that need to happen. And this, of course, also happened at the same time where interest rates skyrocketed. The Flagstar loans were variable rates, interest rates that were around 3.5% in 2022. And sure, rates were lower then, but you know, over the last decade, we did have that 0% interest rate kind of boom. And so rates were very low. A lot of people were borrowing for this exact reason. Problem with these variable rates is they jumped when, you know, inflation skyrocketed, Fed increased rates. So the rates went from around 3.5% to 7.5%, and in some cases 10.5%. And so you have a situation where people are, you know, having debt service for these properties, and all of a sudden their payments almost triple. In some cases they did triple to go from 3.5 to 10.5%. And meanwhile, they can't raise rents to meet this higher debt service. They can't raise rents to make fixes and make all these changes. And so essentially they're like, all right, we're going to put them into bankruptcy. And so these properties are listed at evaluation. And I'm assuming they mean an evaluation if I guess I'm not sure exactly how they did it. But they're essentially selling them for like a 40% discount. And New York City's like, yeah, you still can't make money on it. I mean, so that's sort of the fundamental problem with it. I mean, this is sort of the realization to a lot of people who do support rent control is that, I mean, here you have a situation where you have someone buying properties at a 40% discount. And the argument is that the rent is so cheap that they still can't make money on them. Because, Mom Donnie, recently, toured these properties and said that they were in disrepair. And so he's arguing they're going to have to put major renovations are going to be required. They're going to cost, a lot of money. There's going to be, basically whoever's buying it's going to have to put a lot of money in these projects. And I guess they're arguing is that the economics doesn't make sense. That why would they do that? There's no way they're going to do that. And so I don't know what the end goal is here. But this is, I mean, we're 6 days into the new year? I mean, Mondami's been mayor and all of a sudden he's running into and some people have actually argued on Twitter, I don't know how accurate it is, that this could lead to some major changes to rent control. Because when you have a rent control advocate arguing that a company buying properties at a 40% discount can still not make money because of rent control, we really have kind of a problem with rent control. And I do want to note there was a 2024 study that was done by Konstantin Kolindelen. I think I'm saying that I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But the author of this study looked at 206 works between 1967 and 2023 and found 112 of them were empirical published studies. And here's what the author found. Quote, although rent control appears to be very effective in achieving lower rents for families in controlled units, its primary goal, which is what it's supposed to do, it also results in a number of undesired effects, including, among others, higher rents for all the other units, lower mobility, and reduced residential construction. I mean, if there's one thing that's kind of fascinating about this, economists do not agree on a lot. I mean, sure, you find like supply siders, and of course all the supply siders agree, but then, you're going to have people on the other side who are going to say, oh no, supply side economics is completely wrong. You got Keynesian economics or economists, and, they're going to argue, the impacts of, government spending and the multiplier effect and how government can stimulate the economy. And then you got people on the other side who are saying, so economists don't agree on much. But the one thing they pretty much 100% agreement on, sure, you can find some outliers, is rent control is garbage. It doesn't work. And so, I mean, there's no better example of this than what's happening right now in New York City, where you have a mayor who is an advocate for rent control. And he is arguing that a for-profit company cannot buy properties at a 40% reduced price and make money. That's crazy. That is so crazy. And that's why some are arguing, could this be the end of rent control? Because this is kind of a with everything that's going on. I mean, I don't know how high profile it is. I might be the only one talking about it, but I thought, to me, it was very fascinating that 40% reduced price still can't make any money. There's something wrong with rent control. if that is, I mean, even if it was like 70% off, I mean, 30% off, I mean, it's 20% off. You should be able to make money at 100%. And you're saying I can't make money at 60%? That's a problem. All right. I was going to talk about what's going to happen tomorrow, but I don't have any time. So we'll talk about what happens tomorrow. But you guys enjoy your Tuesday. I'll be back here for another edition of Wilmington Mortgage. And remember, as always, do not wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and wait.